So 5G is something that's pretty controversial right now. There's a whole bunch of people saying, oh, I can't wait for 5G. And then there's other people who are a little bit more anxious or nervous about 5G. What are some of the problems that you have with 5G, Lucinda?
Firstly, I think the biggest problem I have is there's not enough scientific evidence to say that it's safe. There's not enough scientific evidence, full stop, but there's certainly not enough that says it's safe, yet it's being rolled out regardless. There are scientists all around the world that are absolutely dead against it and have voiced their opinions and are not being listened to. And these are well-respected people that should be being listened to, and they're not. So that makes me really worried to start with.
So the underlying problem, or the underlying perceived danger, is around this idea of EMFs. And I don't understand what EMF is. Tell me what EMF means and why this is, why people are concerned about EMF.
Yeah. Okay. So EMF stands for electromagnetic fields, sometimes called EMR, electromagnetic radiation. I use the words interchangeably, or the terms interchangeably. We're looking at what it refers to as the whole electromagnetic spectrum, which goes all the way from the natural radiation of the earth all the way up to radioactive materials. In between all of this, we've got things like visible light, we've got radio, television, all our wireless communication. Right down the bottom end of it, we've got things, what we call extremely low frequency electromagnetic fields. So that's to do with our wiring, our appliances, things like that. So everything with cables.
So one extreme, we've got the earth, then we've got things like wiring and cables, then we've got Wi-Fi. At the other extreme, we've got things like X-rays and radiation, and there is absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that X-rays and exposure to radiation can indeed be fatal. At the other end, we've got things like the sun and the earth, and it's obviously perfectly fine. Where does say 5G fit in with this particular spectrum?
5G is probably about midway. Before I go right into that, I just want to say though that dangerous end, the area that's known and recognised as being dangerous, is called ionising radiation. The World Health Organization a few years ago had up on their website that even non-ionising radiation was seen as a possible human carcinogen, which means it could cause cancer in humans.
And before we hit record, you were telling me about research that's coming out of the US where people are getting cancerous lumps on their breasts and other places that are in unusual shapes, like squares.
Yes. So there's research that's coming out of the US, and you can find a lot of the information about this particular type on environmentalhealthtrust.org. And they're finding that there's a lot of breast cancers that are in either like a square or rectangular shape. And the breast cancers traditionally, like normal breast cancers, are deep in the breast tissue, whereas these cancers are quite superficial, so in those topmost layers of the skin. So that's a very big shift in the types and sort of the presentation of the cancer. And what they're finding, they'll sort of go through some investigation, questioning, talking to the clients about it, and what they're finding is that the women where they've got these odd-shaped cancers in their breast are sticking their phone in their bra.
Yeah, so this is for many women out there. Don't stick your phone in your bra. Don't stick your phone next to your genitals if you want to have children one day. And this is basically the technologies. This is from the technologies that we're using right now. So why is 5G different?
5G is very different. 5G is sitting in the very high frequency range. It's difficult to explain exactly because it's a very, very complex area. So 5G is basically in a spectrum starting where we have been using wireless technology going up to an area where we haven't. So we're starting as low as 700 megahertz and we're going above and beyond 60 gigahertz. Ooh. At the moment, we're using about maybe 3 or 4 gigahertz. Right. So this is going into completely unknown territory. The higher you go in this, the shorter the wavelengths, which means also that they don't penetrate things as well and they can't travel so far. So this is why with 5G they're going to be putting up masts every 100, 150 meters so that they can relay around. The 5G signal will get blocked by things like trees. So trees are going to be cut down to ensure that the signals happen. this is all paving the way for the Internet of Things. So this is our driverless cars. This is our appliances like washing machines and whatnot communicating with each other. They've all got little things in them called Zigbees. And what happens is all of these things need to communicate via this high-end level of electromagnetic fields on the spectrum. So we're going up into millimeter waves where it's very, very unknown. There is some information that's coming out that's showing that there's all sorts of devastating effects on insects and animals. So tiny, tiny insects, if they fly through a beam, will actually die.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well for bigger organic.
No, I know there was some information that came out, and I feel much greater need to be checking the truthfulness behind everything, because like I've seen stuff, but these particular stories I haven't followed. It's kind of like, oh, you know,
yeah, what's news,
sure
what's fake news, what's scandalous, and what's you know, yeah,
totally. But there was a trial that they did in France. And all of a sudden there were hundreds of dead birds, and they turned the 5G back off again, and that was the end of that problem.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as though there was a disease. So I think there's too much that's unknown about it.
Yeah.
I know that people are really worried about the masks that are going up outside, and I've been contacted by groups about organising shielding for them to stop that from coming in. But my problem with that is there's stuff on the inside that's designed to be part of this network. So there's the new routers that are coming out with all the new NBN deals where, you know, it's actually part of this relay system. So you may not be using it for your stuff, but it's part of the relay system. It's a dual band, and it's actually part of this whole bigger system. And all of these are within our homes, and we're, you know, in close proximity to them.
Well, I think the next couple of years are going to be extremely revealing. Thank you very much, Lucinda, for bringing a new perspective and some clarity to this for a Luddite like me.
It's my pleasure. I hope it helps.